We're going to make this one relatively quick. We're 2 days removed from the Geico 500 at Talladega Superspeedway, and there's really a couple key things that we need to talk about. I think first and foremost, a lot of people are still unhappy. The really kind of slow racing we saw in the middle part of the Daytona 500 with cars going qualifying speed in the pack. We saw that again at Talladega. Were pretty upset about it. And in a way, I get it. But in a way, what else do you really expect the field to do? If they have to save fuel, I'd rather see them, side by side, at least give it the vague impression of racing, as opposed to, the single file freight train that we were really accustomed to seeing in some races in the Gen 6 era. I think the real question I have is, how do you solve this? Do you make the stages shorter? Do you add stages? Denny Hamlin suggested making it a 400-mile race, so it wouldn't be a factor with the fuel mileage. I don't really know if I like that idea, but what else are you supposed to do? I think, in my opinion, I'd rather see the drivers taking their time, at least going side by side, keeping it clean. We didn't see any wrecks up until stage 3 with Christopher Bell, in part because of this, just because they were keeping it clean. They weren't making aggressive moves yet. They got a little bit aggressive at the stage finish. We saw the crazy block that Joey Logano made on Chris Buescher. But in a way, they're kind of just thinking big picture. So obviously, do you want more excitement that we're accustomed to seeing at Talladega? Yes, but are drivers supposed to go 100%? I know some people were saying that it goes against the 100% rule, with drivers just kind of coasting and not really going full speed. But I would argue saying screw pit strategy, screw fuel saving, and just putting yourself in a position going 100% and having to pit and being in a worse position, you could argue that gives you the worst chance to win. Maybe you're not giving 100%, trying to give yourself the best finish you can. So it seems like something that should be corrected in some way. But what is the fix? We didn't really see it quite as much at Atlanta. We saw a lot of carnage, obviously, right from the start. There was a wreck on lap 2. It was a little bit calmer during the second stage, but it seems like all of a sudden the Super Speedway package is better suited specifically for Atlanta than we're seeing at Daytona and Talladega. I thought the racing was fine. It was competitive. I think the bigger problem is how to get these cars to be able to race. Kyle Busch tweeted about it. He was about 5th in line on the outside lane. The third lane was trying to form, and Busch went up there, made a good move. He was leading that line for a little bit, and then it faded back, and he finished all the way in the back of the pack, lost about 5-10 spots. So everyone was talking about it. Once you got in the middle of the pack, it was impossible to pass. The same issues we're seeing in Martinsville, for example. I think that's a much bigger issue than what we're seeing in the early parts of this race with just relatively slow racing. What do you fix? How do you fix it, though? We had such a great package to end the Gen 6 era. The Super Speedway races in 2019, 2020, 2021, with those extreme closing rates, some of those races were unbelievably good. So what's different about this car? What's preventing us from having that style of racing? And you can't really say that one's safer than the other. Obviously, there was a very scary crash with Ryan Newman at Daytona in 2020 that a lot of people were fearing the worst. Obviously, that wreck was terrifying. But on Sunday, we had another injury as well. Toyota had a great strategy going. It looked like they were going to control the race. Denny and Clint were talking about it in the booth. They made the move. They were catching the lead pack. You were going to have to do something to get past them or to hold them off, and they blew it. I don't know what happened. Going into turn 3, Erik Jones led Bubba Wallace, who led John Hunter Nemechek. It looked like it was just a push gone wrong going into turn 3. It looked like Nemechek might have gotten into Bubba, who got into Jones. You could see them getting a little bit squirrely going in the turn, but Bubba tried to catch it, got sideways, hooked Jones in the worst possible spot, sent him head onto the wall. Just a brutal hit. You knew it was bad as soon as you saw it. And we just found out today that Erik Jones has a compression fracture in his lower vertebrae. He will be out for this race at Dover. Corey Heim will be making his Cup Series debut in the 43 car. It's tough to see. Jones is one of the good guys in the sport. He's battled through a lot. He's kind of had to overcome quite a bit in his career. I still think he's one of the top drivers purely on talent in the sport. and unfortunately, we're not going to be able to see it for the next week at minimum. But it was just a tough deal. I'm not sure really what happened there, but obviously, if you're Toyota, you got to be livid. Christopher Bell had already wrecked; he was out of the race. Jones was out. Bubba Wallace was out. Nemechek was out. He continued on, but he was laps down. He was pretty much out of contention. Denny Hamlin was out of the race as well. Tyler Reddick won the race, and I'm not sure if that makes up for that. Obviously, a win's a win, and we got to talk about that a little bit because that was really cool to see Michael Jordan just getting so excited, holding Reddick's son, and just finally getting to be a part of a win. I've been at 3 of 23XI Racing's wins so far, all 3 at Kansas with Kurt, Bubba, and Tyler Reddick. Obviously, they're big deals. You could tell the team's excited. Denny Hamlin was pretty excited except for the last 2 because he finished second. Probably should have won the last one when Reddick won it. But you could tell it means a lot. And seeing Michael there finally for a win was everything you wanted to be. You know, he mentioned it that he doesn't own run the Charlotte Hornets anymore. It feels like he needs a little bit of that competitive edge still because we've heard all the stories about Michael, how competitive he is, whether it's on the basketball court, whether it's on the baseball field, whether it's on the golf course. I've even heard stories about him playing ping pong in the locker room. But he loves to compete. He loves to win. And to see him fully immersed in that. We've seen him at the racetrack before, Daytona 500, everything like that. But to see him finally be able to take a checker flag the way that they did too, with such a crazy finish with Reddick coming out of nowhere in turn 4 to win that, it was really cool to see. You had a lot of people talking about it. It was on Pardon the Interruption. Mike Wilbon and Tony Kornheiser were talking about it. Magic Johnson was tweeting about it. That's really good publicity for NASCAR. Whether you're a fan of Toyota, whether you're a fan of Tyler Reddick, whether you're a fan of Michael Jordan, that's great publicity for the sport. Stuff like that is so good. That's PR, marketing. We're going to be using that for years. Whenever we talk about Talladega, we're going to be able to see Michael Jordan holding Bo and giving Tyler Reddick a big hug in victory lane. That's a really cool moment. But we do have to talk about the finish. Obviously, a lot of people were giving Michael McDowell a hard time for that finish. He was leading coming off of turn 4, and he tried to block Keselowski because Keselowski came with a head of steam with Noah Gragson behind him, who, by the way, best career finish for Noah Gragson. He ended up 3rd in this. But it's the common case. Keselowski tried to go high, went down low, kind of looked like Carl Edwards wreck in 2009 with Keselowski. McDowell was blocking, got sucked up high, tried to come back down, and you knew it wasn't going to work. He wrecked, caused a big crash. Corey LaJoie ended up flipping, and it cost Keselowski too because he might have been clear. He might have been able to clear McDowell or at least get side by side with him, but obviously he had to slow up because of the wreck. Reddick came on the high side and was able to win the race. And a lot of people are blaming McDowell, holding it against him. Obviously, the wreck was on him, 100%. Let's call it what it is. Saying, you get 1 attempt at a block, but you don't get 2. It looked like McDowell was trying to do a little bit too much, trying to win that race. But I just said it. He's trying to win a race. He's not in the playoff conversation right now. He hasn't had a great start to the year. He's been in the sport since 2008, only has 2 career wins. Are we expecting Michael McDowell not to try to win the race right there? Okay, let's throw this out there. He was up the track trying to get 1 last block and already sideways. If he makes that move, he did make that move. He has what? A 1% chance of winning the race. If he stays up high, he has a 0% chance of winning the race. Go back to the 100% rule. Do you really expect the leader to just say, all right, I blew it. You guys settle it for yourself? No. This is what the playoff format basically requires drivers to do. You got to make these bonsai moves. Who cares who's behind you? Who cares what's going to end up happening? You owe it to yourself, your team, your sponsors, everyone to try to make that move and try to win the race. It's going to work out maybe 1 out of 10 times. But what else are you supposed to do? I heard people saying he should have just backed off and given Ford the win. Michael McDowell doesn't care about that right there. Why would he? You think that's going through his mind right there in turn 4 when he's trying to hold on to the car and try to get a win at Talladega? That it was Keselowski and Gragson in 2 4s behind him when Ford hasn't won in the entire top 3 series so far to start the year? That is not going through his mind. You can't. hindsight is 2020, obviously. But if that's your favorite driver, do you really expect him to just back off and just say, you know what, I lost it. You guys go ahead. After he led the most laps in the race, won the pole, was leading basically the entire run, trying to hold off both lanes. Look, obviously it's a bad look. It was a mistake by McDowell. It cost him a win. It cost him a lot more than that. It junked a lot of race cars. Fortunately, no one was hurt in that wreck. Obviously, it was pretty scary with Corey LaJoie. Literally, Ross Chastain rode the wall at Martinsville. He rode the wall. He was up on it. But again, that's what drivers are supposed to do. They're supposed to go out and try to win that race. Michael McDowell did what he was supposed to do. And I don't hold that against him one bit. We're going to move on now. We've got Dover coming up next week. Already, like I said, Erik Jones will not be in the car. It'll be Corey Heim making his Cup Series debut. I'm excited to see what Heim can do. Obviously, I wish the circumstances were better. But Heim, in my opinion, is one of the two best prospects in NASCAR. I think he and Chandler Smith have superstar written all over them. And I'm really curious to see how that ends up developing in the next couple of years, because they are both Toyota drivers. They are both still very young. Chandler Smith's only, 21 years old? Feels like he's been around a long time, but he's got so much longer to go. So we'll see how that happens. This is a good opportunity for Heim just to run laps. The next gen car is so much different than the truck he's typically running, than the Xfinity car he's run a couple times so far. So I just want to see him have a good, solid weekend. Don't tear up the car or anything like that, and just learn as much as you can. Basically, don't be a headline. You don't want to be the guy that gets sideways in front of the leader, holds anyone up, costs somebody the win, makes a mistake like that. Just be solid. He's a great driver. I have no concerns over him whatsoever. But my pick for the race is going to be Kyle Larson. Dover is a Larson type of track. He won here back in 2019. He has led a bunch of laps, specifically 2021, where he led well over 200, ended up second to Alex Bowman. I think Larson's due for his second win of the season. He's off to a really good start this year. He's been competitive basically everywhere we've gone. He's doing a good job leading laps, getting stage points, but I think it's time for him to chalk up another win in the win column. William Byron's obviously got 3. Chase Elliott just got his first. I think the Hendrick domination with those 3 in particular isn't going to stop anytime soon. So I'm going to take the 5 car to win at the Monster Mile. Hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next week.